Well, I had time for another play set today. Um, Took a pause for some family time and then managed to slip another round in there. I was talking to Brian about Chandra, Torture of Defiance, possibly coming in, something he thinks, because he's been very impressed by this card in Nin. And I would like it in the deck as well, but I think a couple of changes have to happen. We were talking about how to support it with the mana base, and he suggested Cascade Bluffs, which I agree with. That's the filter land where you put in a blue or a red, and you get out a combination of your choice of red or blue. So with that one land, you could tap a blue source and get 2 red to cast Chandra. The problem is, first, where would Chandra be slotted in the deck? And I think initially we were thinking about Tezzeret, but I think Tezzeret's probably too important as an additional way to just win a game outright because of the Tez into Orb interaction. But also Tezzeret Crucible map can win a game against decks that are unable to that have too many non-basics. Um, so I think it would actually go in the Supreme Verdict slot. And the reason I'm not using it is, well, twofold. One, Supreme Verdict right now is a get out of jail free card against Emrakul coming down. Well, we do have Cavern of Souls Palace Jailer combo to make an uncounterable solution to Emrakul. That's not always going to be, we may only have access to one half of the combo, in which case, being able to tutor up a Supreme Verdict and just play that outright is pretty important, I think. So that's a very strong reason, I think, to leave Supreme Verdict in right now while that's still a threat in the environment. And then the other thing is that to get the Cascade Bluffs in the deck, I'm not entirely clear which card would be cut, but I think right now the most eligible candidate would have to be either Steam Vents or City of Traders. And I really would not like to cut City of Traders because I think it does some really crazy stuff. So probably Steam Vents. But that seems a little weird cutting a red source to get a red source in. So then I keep leaning back towards City of Traders, and it's like, I don't know. Anyway, I think for now, it's going to sit by the wayside. So let's get to some games. I managed to go, as I said, five wins today, a second time with no losses. I just rolled right into it. And as you can see, and this is probably too soon to make this statement, but I will go ahead and do it anyway. As you can see, in round one, I killed Adam West. I couldn't believe that that was the name of my opponent on today of all days, but it is what it is. So, moving into game one, I lost the dice roll to Adam. And he's playing mono red and leads off with Monastery Swiftspear over Zergo, which is kind of interesting. So I kept a hand that's got potential for early Breya, but it's also got Mystical Tutor for a possible Wasteland. I wish I had led off with a fetch land here, because that fetch land's now going to do 2 extra points of damage to me, because he has turn 2 Onka Mishra. So definitely one of his stronger starts for that deck. But I'm going to have to just eat it. And fortunately, the extra 10 life buffer from being a commander format helps a bit, since red is just so insanely deadly in this format. I think it's pretty important. So I take some more damage, but I do get Izzet Signet down. My opponent plays his commander and a 3/3 menaced, and having drawn Force of Will last turn was a very good uh, top deck because it allows me to easily just cast Breya here without having to worry too much about it. My opponent's down to only 3 cards in hand. I'm at 16. And he has Stoke to Flames. I am going to force that. I force it with an Impulse since Merchant Scroll's a bit more flexible. And my opponent plays Zozu the Punisher. So, fortunately, this deck is designed, as you know, to operate in low land light and even sometimes no land situations, often of its own making. So I am going to just be patient. So I don't want to... he's starting to charge up his Helion Crucible. When he gets a second charge on it, he sacks it and he gets a 4/4 with haste. I think it's the second charge. Oh, he gets the option. He would have to put mana into it a third time. So I guess it's a 6 mana 4/4. Not that great, and it costs you a land. But on the other hand, it only takes a land slot, so it's still probably playable. So what ended up happening here was a bit unfortunate. I got a call from Brian at this point in the game, and I stopped to take the call. And as you can see, my clock ran down to where I was a minute under him, and he had taken an extended length of time to make his choices already because this is very early in the game, and you can see he's down to 13 minutes. But because I sat there for almost 6 minutes with no action, I think he just got frustrated. And given the fact that I'm pretty far ahead on the board to some extent where he hasn't really put enough pressure on me, I suppose conceding here isn't the craziest. He knows I have a counterspell in hand. I was actually trying to think about what I was going to do in the background, but it was very hard because I'm unable to focus on. I'm very good at focusing on one thing um, and doing a good job that way. I'm not good at dividing my attention. Basically, I end up just doing two things poorly, so I was focused on my phone call. So anyway, it was kind of unfortunate there. So I guess technically I didn't actually kill him, so now I don't have to feel bad anymore. And I probably shouldn't have made that joke or whatever. Anyway, comment. Anyway, game two, my opponent's playing a Timna and Silas combo. I get to go first, and I lead off with first turn land tax off a Mox Diamond and no other play, and then force a will his Chrome Mox, which might have let him work around the tax. So we're now going to Ancestral here, and with a Brainstorm, I get to do it again, which is amazing. And because this deck can pick up lands pretty easily, there's no need to worry too much about playing them. So let's grab a few more. So he plays two different creatures, both of which counter instants or sorceries if you sacrifice them. They force spike instants or sorceries, so I'm just going to work around that. So play As Foretold here. Obviously, if As Foretold gets rocking, I pretty much have this game in the bag, as you know, if you've watched enough of these videos. So he hits me and gets to draw a card with his commander. But now we are in As Foretold mode. There's nothing to tax for anymore, but see, as you can see, there's a free lightning bolt into Dimir Signet, into Dak Faden. I'm going to steal his Skull Clamp. I was afraid he was going to draw 4 extra cards over the course of that game. Now he will not. He doesn't get to kill Dak. I traded Dak for Skull Clamp and some life over here. I think that's a very worthy exchange. And then he has Anguish Unmaking and doesn't take out As Foretold. He takes out my Mox. If you're trying to hurt my mana, taking out the card that generates unlimited amounts of it's probably the better choice. So I go ahead and cast a Snapcaster for free, and then deprive an island back into my hand, and with 1 extra mana floating, only because of the way that my mana was going to work out, and lightning bolt off the more threatening of the two creatures he had. Then on my turn, I go ahead and gush the last of my lands back into play. Who needs them? And cast a free Demonic Tutor and use that to cast Scroll Rack, and we are in Tax Rack mode with an active As Foretold. This is gnarly. Very awesome. So just scroll away the whole hand and pass for the turn. So now I can actually counterspell, and I have 1 mana untapped to pay for it. If he tries to Force Spike it, and he, on his turn, plays Bitter Blossom, misses a land drop, and with that, he just scoops it up. I'm about to draw multiple cards again, and of course with As Foretold supporting me, I can now draw 3 or 4 cards per turn with the Tax Rack combo and play them with As Foretold. So it's just going to get completely absurd. Obviously, if this were Chandra right here, it would have been superior, but I think in most games it probably will be. But yeah, I'm not quite ready to give up that safety net, because right when I do, it's when I'm going to face a spate of Baral decks. I'm just certain of it. And I don't want to have to deal with that without having my out. So anyway, round 3, the typical Cromvile Smasher combo. No big deal. So I get to lead off with a first turn Wayfarer and no other land. And top deck is Aurea's Chancery. It's so good. Obviously, I was going to not attack here. I was planning to activate Wayfarer, but this works out much nicer. As long as I do get to activate it. And he plays Dark Confidence, so I am going to get to activate Wayfarer. So I draw Jace, and of course, the first land you get against these decks is Cavern of Souls, and I don't put it into play. I protect it. So my opponent, he revealed an Ancestral Vision and goes ahead and floats it, so I'll leave that up. and he does nothing else. On my turn, I go ahead and fetch Wasteland, the second card you get, and activate Breya. It's usually one or the other in whatever order. And for some reason, he had Smother and didn't use it. So he actually saved his Smother long enough to let me go fetch a Wasteland here. So that's a little bit odd, but I accept. I accept the free Wasteland, sir. On my turn, I go ahead and Demonic Tutor with 1 mana floating, and I was hoping he'd let it go and not realize what I was going to get, which was an uncounterable Palace Jailer. So Dark Confidant is now basically working for me. I'm going to go ahead and attack here, but I'm not going to send the flyers because I don't want to lose the Monarch to Crumb. Combination of removal spells and Crumb. So he just plays a mass removal, Rolling Earthquake, and I top deck Tezzeret. That will work. Tezzeret into Orb. Wasteland, whatever he untaps. Now I'm planning to move into Tezzeret for Crucible very, very shortly. So I think the play here was probably going to be Jace, but it may have just been sit on Counterflux and win, because I don't actually need... I'm drawing 2 cards per turn with the Monarch, so I don't actually really need to take any risks whatsoever to win this game. I don't necessarily need to play Jace, but I suppose I would have, simply to not only get Jace into play, but also because it would have given me an extra island for Gush down the road. So anyway, that was a very straightforward beating. My opponent got what did he? He only managed to play a very tiny handful of cards before that game was over, due to the way that all the cards lined up there. So that was very nice. All right, so Soul Reaper, here we go. That deck's so absolutely insane without some kind of... It's a good thing Winter Orb... They were talking about banning Winter Orb. Can you imagine how horrible this format would be without Winter Orb? Anyway, so my opponent's playing Maelstrom Wanderer. Talk about an example of how horrible the format would be without cards like Winter Orb to keep commanders like Maelstrom Wanderer in check. So I've got a pretty good start, but it's missing colored mana. My opponent's getting going quickly. I do Wasteland his untapped mana here, and that allows me to play City of Traders and a Talisman Opal, so now I feel much more secure. Not great, but certainly good. So Mystical Teachings at the end of his turn. For Tutor, Tithe for Double Island, I believe. Yep, and Mystical Tutor for Armageddon. I get to blow Armageddon here with 1 mana up in case he has Daze. He has no counter whatsoever, apparently. All of his lands go away. I get to play a land and then cast Demonic Tutor, at which point I would have Demonic Tutored for Dak Faden, and then on the next turn, played land, Dak, steal your Mind Stone. So, good game, sir. If you haven't guessed, I'm not a big fan of the big mana decks. In terms of, they feel like, well, look, there was one in the semifinals, in the finals. But it is interesting, at least, as you can see, another Maelstrom Wanderer deck. It is interesting to see that these decks are making the finals. And I think it's just that decks like Vial Smasher have no decent way to interact with the Maelstrom Wanderer decks. And the Maelstrom Wanderer decks have stronger, they do more powerful things, basically. Anyway, so this turn I've got a really fast start, so we're going to get Breya down early and then try to make the game about Breya while I focus on trying to get some defenses into place. Unfortunately, my opponent's got Basalt Monolith. That card's pretty savage in his deck, so I don't attack here because if he gets Maelstrom Wanderer down, I may need to block, I may need to sack. I don't know what I need to do. I'd like to pressure him, but I felt like it was just too risky. So I go ahead and he fetches even more mana, so Wanderer is certainly a threat right now. I go ahead and Tithe first and then factor Fiction into Jace or 4 lands. I'm going to take Jace, unfortunately. And then on my turn I get Painful Truce. That helps a bit. And then I do something I really didn't want to have to do, but I imprint as foretold under Chrome Mox. I trade a long-term mana solution for a short-term one, only because I wanted as much mana up on this turn because I figured Wanderer was coming into play. And I needed to be ready to possibly sacrifice multiple things. Instead, he actually develops and then bribes. So I go ahead and sack Breya, who he gets off the table with Palace Jailer and a flyer. And then he now has the Monarch, so he's going to draw a card. But I leave one flyer up. If he had a, like, say, a red untapped, I would have sacked, say, something else in order to make sure that I could connect here and get the Monarch back. So I go ahead and play Jace. Jace into no counter magic whatsoever. Recast Breya, only because Breya is a way to get his commander off the table if he slimes his commander. He plays Destructive Force, so I float some mana and just let the creatures die. And unfortunately, I have exactly 5 lands, so he's going to get my Karoo. It's very disappointing. He uses the opportunity to charge his Fungal Reaches. I use the opportunity to charge my Jeweled Amulet. He then plays Garruk. I go ahead and makes a Beast. I just bounce the Beast. Play Expedition Map and Wasteland one of his lands off the table. He is now multi-charging Fungal Reaches and, well, he has the potential to do it, but he untaps Basalt Monolith. So I'm going to pause here. So I'm using Jace, trying desperately to find. So I need to stop. I'm fairly certain that because I've used and lost Breya twice now, it's very unlikely that I'm going to be able to stop his commander if his commander comes out. So I have to stop his mana. And with a Garruk and Basalt Monolith running, this is extremely hard to do. Fungal Reach is potentially being charged multiple times with Garruk. This is just really bad, right? So I did find a disallow here, and I'm trying to figure out how to do this. So I've got 1, 3 is 4, 5, 6, 7 mana showing, plus he can untap 8, 9 mana. So that's more than enough for a Maelstrom Wanderer. So I was thinking about using Crucible into Wasteland to take out the Fungal Reaches, which would leave him with 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7 off Garruk. But that's if he doesn't hit a land. So what are the chances that that guy doesn't hit a land? I didn't want to play those risks, so I decided the play is Dark Confidant go. I'm still drawing cards off of... Now, I did make one mistake. I fetched Plateau, and I felt really dumb when I drew a Daze. Instead of fetching... I could have paid 2 extra life and just fetched a untapped Steam Vents, for example. And when I draw a Daze, yeah, I'm feeling pretty bad right now about that. Now, fortunately, my opponent here plays Halimar Depths tapped, which means he's got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana exactly. And I had to hope my opponent made a mistake here to keep his commander off the table, or that if he did slam his commander down, it came with, say, card draw that I could have Notion Thiefed back into my hand and then use Thief plus Dark Confidant to kill his commander. That was my backup plan. But because he missed a land drop here, so he charges Fungal Reaches and then moves to untap 2 target lands and disallows alternate ability, stifling Garruk. Actually turns out to be super useful here. And then Dark Confidant finds Remand Force of Will, and Jace finds Ravages. Yes, pump the fist. Alright, I'm not going to need Crucible for a little while, so I go ahead and put that away. I put it in the wrong order. I should have put Crucible on top, strangely enough, because I'm the Monarch, so I would draw Crucible and then Dark Confidant the land and not take damage, but I was not thinking about that end of turn draw. Anyway, so I go ahead and Armageddon, play a land, and play Azorius Signet. So I actually have 2 mana up for Remand. I can cast Daze off of the Underground, and I have Force of Will if I need it. So when I saw the Hallowed Fountain pop into my hand, I was a little disappointed. But I have another concern, and my other concern is, well, first of all, 3, 4, 5. If he plays a land that's 6, 7 off of Garruk, so I really got to finish getting the Garruk off the table, but we're almost done with that. So the next thing to do is going to be to address these other artifact mana sources, but I'm also fighting a 5 o'clock timer here. So I'm under the shadow of the 5 o'clock timer. So I go ahead and bounce his guy. I don't even feel bad about not drawing with Jace since I'm already drawing 3 cards per turn with Confidant and the Monarch. All right, so Garruk is addressed. Let's deal with his artifact mana next. So I Demonic Tutor for Dak Faden and steal his indestructible Dark Steel. And he doesn't tap it in response, which was kind of cool. So I go ahead and play a land, take some damage, and draw a card for the Monarch. Alright, so he's down to 4 mana. At the end of his turn, I tap out completely, but of course I have both Daze and Force of Will. Cast Notion Thief so I can up my clock. I take 3 more from Dark Confidant, so that's actually going to start add up a little bit because I don't actually have time to start doing things with Jace to take the sting out of Dark Confidant, so I'm just going to have to not die. I bash for 5. I do Jace up here quickly using a fetch land, but look at that. I'm already down to 3.5 minutes now. But the reason I did it was so that I wanted to get Breya going, plus up Dak, throw away whatever. I click kind of as fast as I can. Draw a card for the Monarch, dump whatever. Obviously, like, what did I throw away? I threw away Mana Confluence Armageddon. That's fine because I'm hoping to get Crucible in play from my Wasteland Recursion. Alright, so I don't take too much damage there, but I'm down to 11 now. I smash for the turn. My opponent sacks his Mind Stone. I don't know if he forgot about Notion Thief or what, so I get a Yawgmoth's Will into my hand. Getting just way, way, way too many cards. I go ahead and Jace. Again, I'm a little bit concerned about my life total. And so this time I'm smart and I put the 0 drop underneath of the expensive spells so that, well, in this case only a 1 drop, but that way the Monarch will put the appropriate card in my hand and the 0 drop will be there for Dark Confidant. I'll go ahead and bolt my opponent here. I realize that I have enough artifacts to kill him, but if you've tried to tap all your artifacts to start sacking him with Breya, and Breya says, oh, are you sure? Click here, click there, click this other thing. It is slow going, so I don't want to start doing that unless I'm really, like, I don't want to start doing that really at all. I want to try to finish him with combat damage. So I just, like, I don't have time to even think about what I'm discarding anymore, and I throw away, like, Merchant Scroll, Yawgwill, Crucible, Deprive. I literally had 4 extra cards to throw away that turn. It's kind of crazy. All right, Dark Confidant gets the Mox Diamond, and now 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I get to swing in, finish my opponent off. 2 minutes on the clock. Wasn't the worst thing ever. Another course of action I could have taken, rather than using Dak to steal... Oh, I forgot. Last turn I actually Dak'd away his Assault Monolith as well, which is why that was gone. So another option, instead of tutoring for Dak, Dak was clearly the better control play. But if I was seriously concerned about the clock, I could have tutored up Tezzeret. I believe, yeah. I could have fetched up Tezzeret, and then from there, I could have, in a single turn, ultimate Tez and just kill my opponent that way. But it would have been a little bit riskier, given that I would have been leaving him with a lot of mana in play. So, you know, I took the safe route, but it may have been, in hindsight, the more dangerous route. Maybe just winning the game right away would have been the safer route. But either way, it turns out it worked out very well, and the game ends, and we got a nice, smooth 5-0, and I actually got to play against stuff that wasn't just the same old, same old. So let's click View Your Previous Deck, and here you can see the list. Once again, in case you would like to utilize some of the same cards. So underneath of Wasteland is Watery Graves, Windswept Heath, and Wooded Foothills. I like this view a little better because you can almost see all of your cards. It'd be nice if they'd put the commander over on the side here and then just expand this up to full and add a button that could minimize. So then you could see the, your full set of lands. But I guess the easiest way to do it would be to just take the 3 basics and move them or something. But it won't let me move them on the screen, so yeah, whatever. Anyway, that's all I've got. I hope you enjoyed that. It was a nice, straightforward 5-0. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.